Cool. Sounds good.
Alrighty, well,
So yeah,
welcome everybody. This is casting 101, maybe 201. I'm not sure how many people have gone through the first session that Draku hosted last. Was it last week or the week before? 2 weeks ago at this point.
um, yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. It was whenever session two was, which was 2 weeks ago. We didn't have a session last week, right? Ended
Yeah,
on Sunday, so week off last week, and then we had our little in houses and actually a fairly decent. I wouldn't say like presentation, but like a fairly long introduction. It was like 30 to 45 minute discussion, and then we were doing some in houses and some stuff. Um, But yeah, it looks like we have some new names in here. So at least the very beginning part of this is probably going to be some review knowledge, but Kyle has put together a kind of brief guideline or a Word doc or a Google Doc that we're going to kind of go through, and then we may have some VODs to review. And it's going to be a little different than like VOD reviewing gameplay. We're going to be VOD reviewing like the perspective of the caster and what we think should be happening, what went well, what could have went well with whatever's we're VOD reviewing. So
mhm,
not so much the gameplay, but the words that we're going to be hearing.
exactly. So we'll kind of kick this off by talking about who are casters. So in a traditional sense, there are typically, at least in Unite, there are typically two commentators included in each broadcast. In some scenarios, you might have a third that's doing kind of more in-depth analysis, but for the sake of kind of what is standard of what we see in Unite, it's typically just the two. And there is the play-by-play and then the color commentator. And the
Mhm.
way I think about it is the caster's job is twofold. It's one, to entertain the audience, but it is also to provide them, kind of an understanding of what's going on in the match. So it's kind of a two prong goal of the casters to
Mhm.
stay fun and lighthearted and entertaining and just enjoyable to watch. But you're also there to give game knowledge, which is kind of why you see like these two separate roles. So, in breaking
Mhm.
down each role play by play, the way I think about play by play is talking about what is happening currently. And that is, okay, what Unite moves are being used at a given time. You are generally focused on bringing energy and setting the tone of the broadcast. And kind of the idea behind how you do it is you want to be quick, you want to be straight to the point, and you want to do so with good word equity. And those to me are kind of like the big portions of being like a successful play by play. Draku, any other thing to add that you wanted to add on that?
Not so much. I think you've mentioned this before, but play by play also sets up the color caster really well, like asking the color caster certain questions to maybe elaborate on what they just saw. So, say, for example, a play by play or a team fight is kind of tapering down to an end. And then the play by play then brings in the color caster somewhat organically to talk about what just happened or what they think about is going to be happening ahead.
Exactly. And kind of that
Mhm.
color caster, and I think Draku's you've said this before of like what what does it mean to be a color caster? And the best way, and honestly, the best way I've heard anybody describe it is you're filling in like the play by play is drawing the outline. They are giving you an idea of what is going on. And then that color caster, they are coloring in that outline, filling in all the blank portions of game knowledge and context of what the people are saying. Because,
Mhm.
yeah, it's one thing to call out, hey, this Unite move got used, this Unite move got used, but like in the grand scheme of things, what's happening? What's the significance of these things that are
Mhm.
happening?
Yeah, play by play is definitely the what is actually happening on the screen. The color is more like the why something happened. Like if you want to separate those two ideas. All right. So when you think about these two types of casters, it's we say it somewhat cut and dry right now, but generally these are the two types of casting that is going on, and sometimes casters can flex into either role, right? So Kyle, for example, is more of a play-by-play caster, and Husky, his primary duo, is the color caster in that pairing. But it's not always so cut and dry. Sometimes a play-by-play will dive into color if there's more color opportunities, and the color, if it jumps into a play-by-play, it will also go into that as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's and with Unite being a quick-paced game, obviously it's only 10 minutes. I mean, if you add like drafted stuff, maybe you're stretching it to 13 minutes and then maybe post game adding another 2, maybe 3 on top of that. So, it is a pretty quick game, so there are going to be there's going to be moments where you do need to flex, and which is why a lot of the casters that you see tend to play the game. And there are definitely some games out there where the casters don't necessarily play the game all that much, but it is with how what's the word I'm looking for? With how quick the game is and how the roles tend to get a little bit foggy because of how fast paced it is. It's not easy for someone that's not familiar with the game to commentate this game because there's a lot that happens very, very quickly.
Mhm. And before we go on, again, if there's any questions, you can just like unmute yourself or you can try to interrupt us if you'd like to. But again, open forum, again, if you guys have any questions. But yeah, so I mean, talking about the various casters that you've probably heard, you've of course heard Kyle and Husky many times. I'm sure you've heard myself. Um, we normally like to hand ourselves or like assign ourselves to the type of casting that we like to do. So, for example, like I was saying, Kyle likes to be a play by play caster, Husky is a color caster. I myself am a color caster. So, my partner for the UCS season, his name is Relic. He's from the EU region. He's a very, very strong play by play caster. But if we go to some of the more popular casters, when you think about Spraggles and Doob Snacks, Spraggles is definitely more of that color caster, and Doob Snacks has that more emphatic voice, very colorful vocabulary. He is definitely more of that play-by-play role between the two of them.
Any questions, comments, concerns before we move on to the next little portion?
Only concerns.
Only concerns?
Yeah.
No questions, only concerns. Excellent. Alrighty. So I have a few things of kind of things to consider of what makes a good caster. Um, and maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this because maybe I'm not all that good, but I'd like to think that I have at least some knowledge over the last couple of years at this point. I think there are a lot of things, just like watching newer casters and even watching back some of my old casting. There's a lot of mistakes that I made, and I want to try to kind of point people in the right direction of ways to get better or like what are the qualities because it's not just saying words, right? Like there's when it comes to being a good casting partner, you got to be cognizant of um, really just setting the tone and everything, but there's like specific qualities that make a good broadcast versus what might be an okay broadcast or even sometimes a bad broadcast. So for me, these are some of the things. And Draco, if you have anything else that you want to add or want to
Mhm.
add upon, please jump in. But to me, like the biggest thing that I try to think about is being succinct. This is something that has been absolutely pounded into me in my coaching sessions that I've had with Dupe Snacks or other casters, and it's super important to be succinct. One thing that if you've ever done a session with Dupe Snacks, you'll hear this phrase "word equity" come up a lot, um, and it's really important. Are you getting to your point quickly? Is what you're saying worth it to the viewers? Are there a lot of filler words? Like these are all things to consider when you are casting because I can't stress this enough. It is only 10 minutes. And
Mhm.
when you're VOD reviewing and you see, I just spent 30 seconds explaining a buff or maybe very common occurrence in the game. I think one of the situations that I'll give a brief example in one of my sessions, like early on, one of the things that Dube Snacks pointed out to me was I took like a 30-second clip of essentially explaining the supporter going into the central area at that first rotation, taking the red buff. And it really hit me in the head when I realized I just took a 20th of the game, obviously 10 minutes, divided by 30 seconds, 1
Concerned of
20th.
math.
Yeah, 1 20th. So
Concerned
five.
with this math. Very
Right.
concerned with this math.
Yeah. Very, very concerned. 5% of the game I wasted explaining something that people just think as second nature. So think about like when you are VOD reviewing or practicing, is what you're saying going to be worth it? Is the point worth the time that you're taking up? A lot of the times it might not be. So really be kind of concerned with being succinct, quick to your points. That I very much wasn't in this like demonstration.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, and I actually use this in my day job as well, like giving presentations for my day job too. But if you're not familiar with what I do, I'm an environmental scientist. During the day, I give presentations like every other week or so. But one of the things that makes a really good presenter, and this is cross transferable to being a good caster, is trying to reduce the amount of the word jargon. So if you've never heard of the word jargon, jargon is like highly technical terms that most people wouldn't understand. And I think this is the same thing kind of the same thing to what Kyle is talking about, especially if you're in a color casting moment. There are some moments where it could be very complex, very technical stuff that maybe only a very small percentage of the population that watches Pokemon Unite or plays Pokemon Unite understands. I think doing your best to be succinct and to reduce the amount of jargon or highly technical terms that you're saying within your casting also makes for a good caster. Because when you hear someone talk about something that's super highly technical, you don't understand what they're talking about, that viewer is more than likely to disengage. So not only does reducing jargon and reducing succinctness, I don't know if that's a word, is more entertaining, it also just retains the attention of the audience member that's watching you too.
Exactly. It's very important. It's really like it's I can't stress it enough. Like you don't want to alienate anybody, and I think that's kind of what Draco is saying is you don't want to like alienate somebody that may be watching. I mean, and this is also kind of like talking about like knowing your audience, and we'll get to that, but like knowing who you're catering to, like who your viewer is, and I guess the situation, what you're casting is very important.
Mhm.
Next one, I think this is kind of a tale of two things because it's obviously only important when you are casting with somebody else, but that is a majority of the broadcast that you'll have. Obviously, sometimes maybe a more casual environment you'll have a very like solo cast, but that's very few and far between. But good handoff, it's man, a bad handoff. You don't appreciate a good handoff until you see a few bad ones or give a few bad ones, and you're like, man, I really messed that up, and it kind of like disrupts the entire flow of probably like the next like minute or so usually. And Draku's laughing. I'm not talking about you. I'm literally not
You know
talking
what I'm
about you.
laughing about, though.
I know. I know. But
So the reason why I'm laughing, I'm not gonna go like too into it, but I've had some moments in like some of my biggest casts in my career where I'm just like, I fucked that handoff up so bad. And the unfortunate part about like handoffs is that it also kind of affects your co-caster
Yeah.
as well, and vice versa. So if they give you a bad handoff, you have to be doing this like doing backflips to try to get back into pace. And like good handoffs is something that if you start casting, it is going to be something you need to practice for the entirety of your career. Like it's one of the
Mhm.
hardest things to do in my opinion. And it's different than than like practicing like on your own, because sometimes you just need to practice with somebody else, and knowing your partner is also just the key to good handoffs. And of course, you're never going to have the same partner for your entirety of your career, so it's just something that's always practice on. You I can't harp on this enough.
And I like using your terminology, Draku. I think you said this one time to me maybe like a year ago, maybe even longer, of ending your sentences with periods, not commas. It's the easiest way that I like have nailed it into my skull of if I'm done talking, I am done talking. I'm not going to have a comma and then pick it right back up like a second later. If I'm done talking, I am done talking. Um, the other thing that sometimes you'll see happen is like it sounds like it's ending, and then you have two people talking over each other, and then it's just a whole mess. So like the biggest thing that you can do is if you hear your partner start talking, just don't even try to like recover what you're gonna say. Just let them have it, because then you're at least avoiding a little bit of uncomfortability. So it's super important. I do have some. I guess once Hyde and Thube get here, there are some really good handoffs that they did, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it's like one of their first times casting with each other, and you are gonna have that. You're gonna have good moments. You're going to have bad moments, especially if you're casting with somebody new, and that's part of growing. You'll learn to understand other people's vocal intonation and kind of get their quirks of when they're ending or when they're beginning. Exactly. That's what I've been
Yes,
saying.
thank you.
Uh,
They know me.
Yep. Ooh, ah, But yeah.
I know my interest on his team.
Hell yeah. How's it going? Welcome. We're just getting into kind of the second part here, but hello.
Oh wait, what
Hello.
are y'all teaching? I just joined because I saw Nike.
We are teaching casting today.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
So if you're interested in learning about casting, this is the place to be. Yeah,
I mean, I'll watch. Let's
Sick.
see.
cool. Just to finish off that point of good handoffs, also when you're talking about an idea and finishing that with a period, the other caster kind of knows your ending because you kind of complete your thought too, right? So it's twofold. One is ending it with a period, but also making sure you end your idea, and that's going back to the last point as well, as being succinct and getting to that point as well. Like, don't take forever to end your thought.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, it kind of touches on both points. Cuz yeah, if your partner thinks that you should be done, you probably should be done. I can't stress that enough. It is a give and take relationship. I mean, you are sharing a microphone, so be cognizant of your time, be cognizant of your partner's time. And you want to keep things fresh. You don't want to be talking for long periods of time, because it also kind of gets boring for the viewers. So make sure
Mhm.
that you're constantly handing off, ping ponging back and forth. It's just like a good way. Whoa. It's just like a good way to make sure that there's fresh information, because maybe your partner saw something that you didn't and they're dying to talk about it. Just
Mhm.
yeah, be cognizant of that. I think it's all good stuff.
One thing I also thought about too is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a period. It can also be a question mark.
Oh
I
yeah.
think as long as it's a conclusive endpoint to your thought, or you want to continue engaging with that thought with your co-caster, that is okay too. But like periods and exclamation points and question marks, different than commas, which leave a very uncertain ending to your idea, like where you want to go with that with your co-caster.
hmm And I have a little bit of a section on that. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I do have like a really good tip around asking questions. So we'll get to that, promise. Know your role. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I think it's important.
Know your place.
Know your place, peasant. No, I think it's very important to understand what role that you are taking up in that broadcast. sometimes just knowing how productions are organized, or maybe you're doing this for the first time with a new broadcasting team, and maybe you're doing it with a new broadcasting partner, a commentary duo. Having a conversation with them prior to the broadcast to better understand, what role they typically are, if you're not familiar with them, is always a good starting point. So knowing what role you're going to fill, because there are plenty of casters that are kind of flex casters. They do a little bit of play-by-play, they do a little bit of color, or maybe they lean more play-by-play, but they can flex in a color role. Just trying to find a good balance of understanding what role you're going to be in that particular broadcast. Is it going to be a play-by-play? Am I going to be? Are we both play-by-play, and we're just going to try to wing it with a hybrid broadcast? Like, just understanding what the broadcast is meant to be is a good jumping-off point.
And I think even more important to this is really just communicating with your co-caster.
Yeah.
Because like Kyle and I have casted like a ton of times together, and there are certain moments, like for example, when I was practicing for NAIC a couple months ago, I was like, I'm most likely going to be having more of a play-by-play role. I know I'm a color caster, but for this particular broadcast, I want to practice X role, right? And that happened to be play-by-play for that time. Right, so it's just really good to just communicate with your co-caster what you want to lean into. If it's your first time casting together, that conversation is even more important. But generally, unless like things are out of the ordinary, like me practicing play-by-play, like it's always good to just communicate with your partner.
One time Draku did that and he didn't tell me that, and I just realized he was doing it in the middle, and I was like, oh, okay. I think that's what's going on. And then he asked after the end of that set, he goes, was that good? I was like, what do you mean, was it good? He was like, well, I was doing this. I was like, yeah, I kind of picked that up. I was like, wait, this isn't what Draku normally does. This is weird, but no, it's fine. Sometimes you kind of just pick it up, but having a conversation is always good. Draku.
Or I just like to surprise Kyle.
Sometimes surprises are fun, but if you're new, it might not be as fun for you. But sometimes I find it fun to, like, personally, I like switching my role from time to time. So like Draku mentioned, me and Husky kind of have those defined roles of play-by-play for me and color for her, but I cast with a lot of different people, whether it's like with the Unity Clash squad, or when Battle Hub was doing stuff, or just any other. Yeah, sometimes I just like to flex into a color role. Sometimes it's a little bit fun. It's not my favorite, or I guess my natural and kind of like my style, but it's always good to kind of flex those muscles because you never know when you're going to need them. Like when you're told
Kyle has big muscles.
I do not. I'm a little guy. What else makes a good caster, Draku? I said entertaining. I think this is almost goes without saying, but I think it's very important to be entertaining because, I mean, that's the name of the game. You're there to put on a show. And what that show is I think it's a delicate balance, because you don't want to like stray too far in one direction unless maybe that's the audience. I think finding a balance of both professional, fun, and maybe funny at sometimes like is a good place to be. You don't want to lean too far into just like cracking jokes every line, because you kind of lose some of the pizzazz, but you still want to always make sure that you're having fun with it. That is obviously the main point of a broadcast.
I think a really good comparison as well is, I'm sure for the most part, like most of us have gone to school and have like teachers in our lives and watch presentations. Like, you guys remember when you have like a bad teacher? They're just like usually kind of boring, and they're like really hard to follow. And bringing up about that word I was talking about before, sometimes they might bring in too highly technical of terms or having too much jargon. Like, entertaining is definitely one of your number one priorities for being a caster. Not only are you a caster, but you're also kind of a teacher in a sense as well, because you're describing the game in a way that can be digested, and the easiest way for it to be digested is to be entertaining with it. Right. So that is kind of your number one thing. You're an entertainer, but you're also digesting all of that knowledge of Unite for the viewer to understand.
Exactly. The other thing I put, find your voice, be uniquely yourself. This is a bit of advice that I got early on from a few different casters of really try to find, your tone, your voice. I mean, try to separate yourself. You're not going to replicate Dupe Snacks. You're not going to be Dupe Snacks. You're not going to be Spraggles. They are them. They are who they are. And if you try to be them, you're just going to be a worse version. So find what makes you you and keep doing that, because I think that's really important to build like that personal brand of yourself, so that people know like what they're getting into when they're getting a Draku cast or a Huskyle cast. Like they know what they're getting into. Sometimes it might be a little goofy. Sometimes it might be really serious or try hard. But yeah, just, kind of find your voice. And it may take you some time to do that. You're not going to hit it. You're not going to hit a home run on your first at bat. It's going to take some time to kind of figure it out. I think for me, like one of the biggest compliments that I think anybody has ever given me, without like asking for one, was I think it was Zoinks after UCS, the first go around, which was January for that cup. He like sent me a message of just like how he was proud of me. And he was like, I think the coolest thing about watching you, not only today, but over the last few months, is that it really seemed like you found your voice and your style, which is exactly what you want. And it really kind of separates you from just being another Dupe Snacks ripoff or Spraggles ripoff.
I think it's when you changed your hair. Yeah.
That was March.
Yeah. Oh, okay, never mind.
Now I'm Wish.com Wolf Glick. We have Wolf
Videos?
Glick at home.
Wolf Glick of Unite. Real YouTubist. Changes his hair in March. I don't know if you watched his old videos.
His
but
old
he's
videos
like,
are so good.
He started with, what was it, like Microsoft Paint?
Yeah.
With him drawing his name.
Yep. It's so good. It's honestly so good.
Iconic.
It is. Kind of touched on this one before. Oh, no, go for it. Sorry.
And no, I don't really have much to add, but I guess it's more of a story. It was Worlds last year in Hawaii, so it's almost a year ago now. But it was like 2-3 a.m. at a 7-Eleven after the after party on Sunday. It was like me and a couple of the other casters. It was like Spraggles, Chef, Kello, and Kello's partner, and some other people, I think. But I kind of pulled Spraggles aside, and I was like, I've been doing a lot of work for these other grassroots stuff. Like, I've been really heavy into into casting community events, and I was asking Spraggles, like, all right, what do I do to get noticed by the right people to potentially do a UCS broadcast next year? And this is actually the biggest or the main point that he told me, was like, find your voice. Like, what makes you Draku? What makes you Kyle? What makes you Mike? What have you, right? Like, how is your identity going to be something the Pokemon company wants to promote, right? And of course, they already have their icons, they have their Dupe Snacks, they have their Spraggles, but how do you want to portray yourself as Steel Agent Kyle? How do you want to portray yourself as Draku-san, right? So finding your voice, again, probably one of the most important things to being noticed by other people, is separating yourself as an individual identity is so important.
True.
Yeah.
Huge.
If you want to be like Kyle, cut your hair like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 5 o'clock shadow.
Something like that.
Done.
Yeah. Other one, knowing your audience. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but cast to the audience. Who are you casting with? Who are you casting to? What channel is it on? It's going to be very important to understand what type of tone, what is acceptable, and that's kind of kind of goes with almost anything that is public facing, whether you're public speaking
Mhm.
or you are talking with friends or whatever it is. Like your audience is going to determine kind of your voice and your tone and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what you need to be doing, all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So just understand
Mhm.
who you're casting to and who's going to be watching and understand that it's public.
Yeah, and I think this point is if you decide to get into casting and you start casting more events, like honestly, I didn't really have to think about this point in particular until I would say the last year or so. I mean, I've been casting for 2 to 3 years now. Like for the most part, the audiences that you're going to be casting to when you first start casting are going to be people that know the game generally,
Hmm.
right? But a really good example, and this was fairly recent, was an event. I think Kyle, was on as well. It was an event that the um Engage
Oh yeah.
did a couple of months ago where they had a broadcast streamed into a gaming center in London. And gaming centers, they attract all sorts of people. They can attract shooters to people who play MOBAs like League of Legends,
People
but
that
it's
play
like the
shooters.
whole, yeah, yeah, actual shooters. Yeah, they shoot shots. They shoot their shots. But anyway, I think I made it a point to the casters that day to occasionally during your cast talk about some very rudimentary stuff, like rudimentary to the point of you win the game by scoring the most points. And you score by scoring into these goal zones. Like that was probably one of the first times, and it was very refreshing for me to do as a caster to really break it down to someone who has never seen the game before. And I think we got from our people on the ground there that there were people watching and enjoying it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. And you think about too, watch and pay attention to those Championship Sunday broadcasts for all the ICs this year or what will be Worlds in a week and a half. Spriggles and Dupesnecks are on that for a reason. Obviously, they are the pair, right? That is like when you think about casters, that those are the two. Those are the two. But listen to how they're casting and how it's different from their day one or day two broadcast. It's very, I wouldn't say dumbed down, but it's like Drake, you said, it's very much rudimentary because of the audience. The audience is different. The day one and day two broadcast, they're casting to Pokemon Unite, Twitch, or YouTube. On Championship Sunday, they are casting to Pokemon, YouTube, and Twitch, which is a much bigger audience because it is all of the games. That is the broadcast. That is the main broadcast for the entire weekend. All of the eyes of the Pokemon community will be on that game. It won't be on any other game because there are no other games. So that is them changing their casting to the audience. And I think that's a really good example of it.
Mhm.
Last thing I have is don't hog the mic. Be a good partner. Learn to play off of your co-caster. Let each other shine and set them up for success. It is a partnership. It is a team job. You're not trying to one up your other partner. You're not trying to be better. You're trying to be independent, and you want to make each other better. You want to make their job easier so that they make your job easier. And it is very much a symbiotic relationship in that what you say and do and how you word things and how you hand off and how you set up your last little bit before handing off will determine kind of their next steps and then vice versa. So be a good partner. It's very rewarding to help them get better because they're going to want to help you get better too.
Yeah, I have not too much to add. Just
Cool.
don't step on each other's toes, or don't step on your co-caster's toes. And I think hogging the mic is probably a big one too, or cutting them off as they get to the end of their end of their sentence or end of their thought, right? Let them finish their thought, let them come to a period, let them come to an exclamation or a question mark, right? And then pick it up after that. And then once you have the mic, I would say, and we talked about this in the last one as well, like a good, I wouldn't say this is like set in stone, cut and dry, but like 15 to 30 seconds. If you have a kind of more extended idea, maybe up to 45 seconds, but I would say 45 is kind of caps for holding on to the mic.
Yeah,
honestly.
there's not much. There's not much. I don't know very many games where you hold on to it more than 45 seconds. There's maybe
Yeah.
like one that comes to mind, but even then I can like just see Doob Snacks in the background just saying, Spriggles, just hand it to me. Hand it to me. We'll ping pong it. We'll ping pong it. I think it was, I
Mm.
can't remember what game it was, but I think Spriggle, like the fight just would not start. Like the Rayquaza fight was just, everybody was dancing. Nobody wanted to make the engage. It was a very tense moment. And like Spraggles held on to it for almost a minute straight. And I think Doob actually talked to me about that in one of our coaching sessions. He's like, that made me so mad because I just wanted him to hand it to me so I could just bounce a quick point and bounce it right back to him. Because a lot of those times when it's slow like that, you could just hand it off real quick, have the other caster say a quick thing, but that comes with practice, and then hand it right back off. And we'll kind of get to that, but there's so many times where you could just do a quick handoff and get it right back and you're into it. But that, again, comes with practice and having like that trust with your casting partner that they are going to do that. So, yeah, that comes with being a good partner. Alrighty. Any questions, comments, concerns before we move to the next little section? Huge. I agree. Alrighty.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on a little bit of this, so we could kind of like move through it a little bit. This is just kind of like a general guideline of like when roles are important in which parts of the game. So I don't want to like go like too nitty gritty here because again, it is very fluid. Just some of the points I made here. Timing in a 10-minute game is very important. While the game is fluid in a lot of ways, there are certain points in the match that are best suited for a specific role. So draft is the first part of the game, right? Like that is fully analytical in almost every sense of it. The best information is going to come in the draft from both sides. So this is kind of where the play-by-play caster can flex a little bit of their knowledge of drafting, what's good, what's bad. But I think a good way to think about it too is it's not just simply saying who got what pick. Anybody can do that. Really try to analyze it.
Yeah, I would say in draft, like roles aren't really defined here at all. Really, it's more just flexing your knowledge a little bit. Just, of course, like Kyle said, anyone can say who picked this, who picked that, but it is really more of just the why this was picked. Why was this picked against the enemy team? Is it something that's more adaptive? Is that Pokemon generally strong in the metagame? And one thing that I like to do as a color caster in draft is telling the story within the draft itself. Like, of course, at the beginning of draft, these are Pokemon that are tend to be really strong in the metagame. And then when we get towards the end of draft, like picks 3, 4, and 5, is when you get to the more interesting stuff. And that's where the color caster really starts to shine of like, why is this a really interesting pick? Why is it reactionary to what the other team picked and going about it that way?
Exactly. Just a couple other notes that I added here was, Drake, you said it. Color should really be focusing on like why a pick is good or bad and maybe how it fits into the composition. And maybe a more natural role of a play-by-play commentator is kind of guiding and directing the conversation. So like one thing I personally like to do as a play-by-play caster, obviously I'll make a quick point about, maybe a specific pick, why it might be good. But what I like to do is kind of help set up my color caster of like, when I'm handing it off, I'm going to like end my sentence with like maybe a little bit more of like an inflected sentence around, "Ooh, and that's a Buzzwall last pick," or some. This is just like a example, but like that. If I think a pick might be interesting, that is the opportunity instead of just like completely yapping about it. That is my opportunity to hand it over and kind of set up my color caster of like, why is that an interesting pick? Explain why I'm being excited about Liko picking Duraludon or whatever it is, so that's kind of like a way a play by play can like kind of help facilitate a conversation too.
Mhm. I would say like um when you're listening to casters talk about draft, you can also somewhat understand how much that person plays the game too.
Hmm.
And that's why I think playing the game, like for me, of course I enjoy playing the game, but it's also kind of like a job for me for myself to make sure my knowledge base is sound and that foundation is strong. So good casters can draft really well. Or at
Yeah,
least they understand why things are being picked and why things shouldn't be picked, or why a team is most likely going to be doing better relative to the enemy team's draft, or why a team has won draft versus the other team not winning draft, right? Those are all very conceptual things that you really only understand if you play the game.
exactly. All right, opening. This is obviously where things start to get a little bit more fluid. So this is where you're gonna start seeing kind of a little bit of creative liberty that you'll have as a caster. In the opening,
Mhm.
I think personally, it's always a good. It's always good to have time before the game starts. After all the items have been finalized, to have the color commentator to kind of really shine here. So there's that moment you have final preparations. You're now on the loading screen. This is a really good moment for that color caster to really provide any last minute thoughts on item builds, what matchups are to be, that you need to watch out for. Is it the Absol that is playing against the Decidueye? I mean, like,
Mhm.
what matchups are going to be really good? What matchups on paper are going to be really bad? So it's kind of a good time to talk about that. Any glaring surprises or spicy picks, things that you may think are off meta.
Mhm.
And then from that, do what works for your pairing. Kind of how Husky and I do it. Maybe different from how Doob and Spraggles do it. It actually is. So, like, kind of how we start it, Husky does that like final draft breakdown while the teams are loading in. And then for me, once you hear ready, go, like, once that hits, that is me taking over, explaining the situation of the game, and I'm trying to bring hype because again, play by play, I'm my role and kind of how I see it is bringing the hype, bringing the energy, and I like setting up the situation. Before every game, I think some people just keep talking. I like to have a good reset here. It's to kind of like, this is all right, we are in it, we're ready to go, and this is the situation that's happening. And I think if you watch like the casting thread, I actually had this little bit of feedback, I believe, for Lobo, who was casting with Tano. Like they talked about the draft, and then they just kept going for like the first 30 seconds of the game. As a viewer, I had no idea that it was game 3. And I had no idea that one of these teams was going to be done for the season. And I think that's very important to adding context at the start of the game. What does this game mean? Where are we in the tournament? So that's good time to kind of talk about that. And by the time you're done saying those things, you're like halfway down the path. And I usually hand it over to Husky to kind of talk about the pathing. And that is the color commentator's time to shine about, okay, who's going to what path? Or is there anything that's out of the ordinary? Is there an invade that we need to watch out for? Or any other like, early game information that might be needed to be explained? I think
A
that's
really good point on storytelling. I think as you start to cast more and more and more and more, just revisiting where the bracket is, even if it's not like physically on the screen, or just knowing the teams themselves, that is a secondary part, but also a very important part of your role as a caster. Is what are the stakes that are on the line? Are there any particular storylines that you want to talk about? And that's also just something you can talk about before the game even starts. Typically in Pokemon Unite, when you're casting, there is a break before every set, and that's something you can talk about with your caster, like what's on the line, who are these teams, and it's just a little homework that you probably need to do. And it doesn't have to be like an extensive thing. It can also just be done during that break as well. Like that's just an important storytelling aspect of your role that should always be incorporated.
It's a good call out. I don't even think I wrote storytelling at all in this document. I'm kind of failing. Because you're 1000% right. Like part of your job is to tell a story. And you see it like so many times and times again, especially in these big broadcasts for like ICs of what are the storylines going on through the season? Maybe at NAIC, like Peru and Orange Juicers, maybe they're matching up. What's the history behind that? I'm sure somebody is familiar with how they struggled like, at Worlds last year. That like those types of things are obviously like Drake said, maybe things that are researched prior if it's a big event, or maybe it's like, oh, you're watching Underdunk and there's a story kind of developing. Maybe one team got knocked out in the first round and they've made a hero run in the lower bracket, or maybe you're in the lower finals and now you're getting a rematch of an earlier matchup, or maybe they played each other last week and it went differently. Like there's so many ways to kind of talk about storylines of this and that and the other. And like kind of like that first little bit of the match is usually or even like Trigger said, like in between matches is always a good way to kind of like bring a little bit more maybe more hooks into the viewer to kind of get them interested.
I know we're in like the opening section right now, but that probably being like a good storyteller or something you can add to the what makes a good caster section.
Yeah, I think so too. Storyteller.
Yeah.
Boom.
We'll fill in that.
We'll fill it in
part
later. Yeah.
later.
That's
Alright,
that part.
What's up, Jonathan?
What's up, Hyde?
Just saw him join.
Let's see. Path phase. And this is kind of like a continuation of kind of what I was just saying. Like, this is a big thing. Early game, especially like current state of Unite is so important. You see teams lining up, even in draft, a composition that's going to win the early game because it's so important. That's why like Snorlax was so good over the last couple months. So like one of the big things that I always try to make a point is to focus on last hits. Look at who's holding Eos coins. Like that should be telling you who's winning a path and who's losing, maybe falling behind, even if it's off screen. So if the observer is watching the bottom path the entire first like rotation, but you see that in the top path, maybe the Buzzwole Hoopa are holding a majority of the Eos coins. Like that's a good bit of information that you're going to need when the fight inevitably goes up to the top path. So that's one kind of big key to look at in that early game. For color, I think one of the big things to do is try to time it where you're handing off around that first fight for those 850 birds, because that's going to be, one of the first big engages. It might not be like, it's not to say like, hey, color needs to hold it from 930 to 850. Maybe you have a couple rotations, but a good kind of rule of thumb is to kind of look to hand it off to your play-by-play around then, just to make sure that they're taking that first big fight.
I think some terminology, and you can probably just add it here too, but like this between the 10-minute mark and the 7-minute mark, I think a lot of the casters like to call this the laning phase, where teams are usually allocated to the top lane, the bottom lane, and of course the central area. And then the rest of it is more the team fighting phase, where teams are more organized around the objectives and fighting around the objectives. One thing I also want to add for the first 3 minutes of the game is, at least for a color caster, one thing that's very important to me is talking about the tempo of either team. So this is just another terminology piggybacking off what Kyle was saying is team compositions. Some teams tend to scale early. Think about Buzzwole, think about Snorlax, Leafeon. These are Pokemon that should be doing well in the earlier phases of the game, so that first 3 minutes of the game, but also talking about how the enemy team's tempo is relative to that, right? This is kind of a more technical thing, but say, for example, one team has a Charizard or has a Garchomp. They scale at level 7 and level 9. These are Pokemon that do really well towards the end game. How well are they doing in the early game? Are they getting their tempo online early? And if they are, they're clearly winning the game. If they're taking 5 minutes to get to level 9, then clearly they are more towards what that Pokemon is intended to do, right? So talking about tempo in this earlier stage of the game is, in my opinion, very important for a color caster.
1000%. 1000%. Again, so we talked about that with color. For play-by-play, some of the things that I look to do in this phase, the laning phase, is being quick. This is a really good moment for the color commentator to really shine and explain those types of things, because it is very important to explain those types of things to the viewers. So look to be quick during those times. There aren't like a ton of monumental fights during those times, unless maybe there's an invade. So kind of look for some space for that color analyst to really shine. Kind of the body of the match. Some of the big things that I want to kind of point out are just kind of utilize that game knowledge to understand when important team fights are going to break out. So look at the objectives, the Swablu and Altaria family timers. Maybe in a couple weeks it's going to be something different. We don't know yet. But that's very important. And I can't stress that enough. Not just being aware of those timers, but as a color commentator or as a play-by-play commentator, have that in the back of your mind. If you're the play-by-play commentator and you find yourself explaining things a little bit more, like 5 seconds into before the objective spawns, think about maybe handing that over to the color commentator to kind of finish those thoughts before a fight breaks out, because you might find yourself. I play hockey, and I guess the biggest thing I could like compare that to, if you're a sports fan, is you just had a minute long shift and you're trying to pressure the enemy goal zone, and all of a sudden you're like at the end of your shift, but now there's a breakaway the other way. Well, you can't just go off for a change because you're on the ice. So you don't want to like extend that shift and be tired and not be able to actually do something effective. And that's kind of what tends to happen with newer commentators, is you get stuck doing the other job when you should be just handing it off.
Mhm. And then, at least for the color caster in most of these team fights, of course, the play-by-play is doing more of those team fight calls. But in between those team fights, there are usually phases where players or teams are capturing wild Pokemon. They're not actively engaging in team fights. That's your opportunity to really break down a fight that just happened. You can talk about why a certain team won or lost. You can also talk about how the losing team gets back into that game. That's kind of some of the points that we're talking about here. Why a team won the match or what won a fight. What are the win conditions for them to get back into the game? And then, if you want to, you can bring in some game mechanics that you were observing during that team fight while you were silent.
Mm-hmm. And one big note that I have here is things will get mixed up from time to time, and that is okay. It happens to everybody. It's a fast-paced game. I can't state that enough. It's a very fast-paced game. Sometimes things just happen, and you lose the moment, and you may be asking, how do we get back into that moment? Because it does happen, and sometimes maybe for 2 minutes straight, now you're flipped roles. Like, how do we get back in? So for play-by-play, and this is, I think I hinted on it a little bit earlier, one of my biggest go-tos when I notice that this is happening, and how we can have like this reset, is ask a question. Ask a question to the color commentator. That is going to immediately get them back into that analytical mindset, and maybe that'll also like make them realize, oh, I've been play-by-playing for the last like 2 rotations. Let's get back into this. And Husky and I have talked about this, and whenever I find ourselves doing that, that's my go-to. And she knows immediately, like, okay, we're back in. We're back at where we need to be. Let me answer this question, and then that is our reset. And then I'm going to get us back into the play-by-play during the next fight. So that's to me, that is the easiest win that you can have when you find yourself swapped up. What else do I have here?
I got nothing to add.
Oh,
That was
sick.
great.
Hell yeah. Love that. And then one of the things that Husky does, this is again one of the things that we've worked on and talked about, is I love letting her yap and break down a fight, break down the macro, whatever she wants to talk about. But when there is a team fight breaking out and we see it starting to happen, the best thing that she does is find that engage point and then hand it off with explaining what that engage point was, and then I take it and run with it. So like you'll oftentimes, and we could break down a little bit of a VOD here if we have time. You'll see in a Ray fight, she'll be talking about maybe positioning. Maybe she's talking about the win condition for a team that's behind. Oh, they're going to need Rayquaza. So it is going to be T3 that is playing a little bit more conservative because they are in the driver's seat here. And blah, 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 whatever happens. And then she goes, oh, and there's that Hoopa Unite move. And then I know that is my turn to take the wheel and run with it. Do you run with wheels? I don't think you run with wheels, but
Yeah, you do.
okay.
Carrying it.
But that's kind of like something that if you have a consistent partner that you could work on, or maybe it's something that you can talk with somebody, and maybe hey, next week I have this big broadcast with whomever. Maybe it's something that we can set up a practice before the broadcast or whatever. Something you can work on. But that is one thing that I really like as a play-by-play commentator, because it helps like me get in the moment instead of like a handoff where it's a situation where like teams are just kind of dancing around. You don't know if the fight's actually going to break out or not. But once you start seeing like a Unite move or two fly, you know that fight is on. So I think that's like a really like big slam dunk that you can have from a handoff in a big team fight.
Just to piggyback off of that, when I'm in the color caster role and when I'm looking to hand it off to the play-by-play, like I think it's very important for the color caster to identify which Pokemon are Pokemon to watch in a particular team fight. And I think a lot of us know what those Pokemon are. It's like the easiest example, in my opinion, is like a defender. Right, where are they going to go for that engage? Where is Snorlax going to hit a heavy slam? Who is the Pokemon that Slowbro wants to slow beam? Right, those are the easiest targets, or those are the easiest pivot points to hand it off to your play-by-play caster.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. I think that's nail on the head right there. Pre-Ray and forward, so like the 3 minutes and onward. Drake, is there anything that you want to talk about here? Because this is kind of something that you brought to me as a thing that you like to do. So I don't know if you want to talk about this part.
Yeah. Let me just read this really quickly. Yeah. So it really, from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, and then 2 minutes is usually where the color caster is starting to think about handing it off to the play-by-play, because that's when the final stretch is. But really, that minute before the final stretch is just talking about win conditions. We already know like Rayquaza is a huge win condition. Sometimes Rayquaza is the win condition. There's not really much to talk about. A team could be like super behind. Well, the only way to win the game is to win Ray. And then pivoting off of that, like how does a team win Rayquaza? Is there a particular Pokemon, like I was talking about previously? Is there a Pokemon to watch? Which Pokemon is going to do really well in this team fight, and how do they win that team fight? It's going to be up to that particular player, right?
Some of the things that you can cover, and I have a few. It's not limited. Obviously, you could cover plenty of other things, but these are all things that you can consider when you're talking about leading up to Rayquaza. who is leading in score, who's leading in levels, what are those win conditions for each team? Is it a close battle? Like, could a back cap be the way to go? Maybe the enemy has a Dodrio, right? Like, maybe an enemy has a Dodrio and they're only down by 50, or maybe they're up by 50 and they want to bolster that lead. A Dodrio can, or another mobile target can go there. Maybe the Regieleki walked, or whatever it is. Who, like Drake said, who is going to lead that engagement for Ray? Maybe it's that Snorlax that's likely going to lead with that heavy slam block. Maybe it's that Slowbro that's going to look to eject into a slow beam. Whatever it is. Another kind of important thing: what Unite moves are online. You can see it with the dots. I think most of everybody knows that, but maybe the viewers don't. So maybe that's something that you can quickly point out, depending on your audience. Tell them who has Unite moves online and what Unite move synergies can we work with. Like, maybe there's a Gardevoir and a Metagross that are looking to both unite. Like, that could be really deadly if you can, trap everybody, not only in the Metagross unite, but also like a Fairy Singularity, whatever it may be. Like, think about the different things that you could see. And that's a really, like, that perfect time for that color caster to kind of break those things down. As like a general rule of thumb, I think like anywhere between 2:30 and 3 minutes is like a really good time to talk about that, because really anytime after like 2:30, maybe 2:15, you may start seeing that Rayquaza fight break out a little bit early. So sometimes the earlier the better on that. Yeah, I think that's what I said.
Yeah, I would say, just to summarize this this entire section, like 3 minutes to 2 minutes is a really good opportunity for, I mean, both the color caster and the play-by-play caster to really storytell, or at least summarize what happened in the previous 7 minutes or so, and how the two teams got to that game state. Right. And then once, if you have time to continue talking about the game state, like, how do you think that game state is going to develop after the 2-minute margin? Right.
Yeah.
That's really just predictions at that point. But if you have time, really, it's a lot to talk about in a 30-second window of time. So
yeah, huge.
do your best.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Only can do your best. And then once Ray appears, things to think about, things to talk about. Color, look at positioning, any key things that the audience should pay attention to prior to that first fight. Look to hand off around that first real engagement. I think we talked and hit on that already. And then sometimes the first engagement is a false positive. Maybe Snorlax, you hand it off at when Snorlax heavy slams in, but you see everybody just fully backs out of that. No one really wants to make the first move, and that's okay. And it's okay for that play-by-play to make a quick comment if they see that fight's not going to amount to anything, to hand it back over to the color caster for another setup. Because sometimes, like, it's better to do that than to be a little bit more long-winded, and then you're tired by the time that fight actually happens. I think that's that. Terminology to avoid. And this is a rule of thumb because it is Pokemon. Obviously, for grassroots tournaments and stuff like that, it's not as big of a deal, but just something to consider if you ever do want to be part of the official circuit. Things that you're supposed to avoid. And a lot of these are maybe not set in stone, given Dupe Snack's colorful language sometimes, but just some things to consider, to practice if you do ever get that opportunity to be part of it. Kill, don't use kill, use KO, knockout. Pokemon faints, they don't die. So I know kill is like a common term for almost every other video game, but that is one thing that, like, Draco could say, like, that they hammer into your brain being on a Pokemon broadcast. Some of the other things, Pokemons,
Pokemon.
or Pokemon. Anything other than Pokemon. Pokemon is plural, so don't say Pokemons. Don't say Pokemon. Pokemons,
Pocket monsters.
Pokes, Pocket monsters, I think would probably be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, just try to use Pokemon. Um, I think yeah, I don't think I hear a whole lot of other things other than that, but it is something that they say to make sure to not use. Um,
Creatures,
creatures, yeah,
animals.
animals. They're not animals, that's for sure. Ult, don't use ult. That is not. I mean, it is a standard term for other MOBAs, but in Pokemon Unite, it is a Unite move. So try to use that terminology, and I guess the same thing. Farm as a noun, you could say farm like they're farming their experience. You could say that. That's perfectly fine. Um, or but instead of using farm as a noun, wild Pokemon is generally the accepted term. And I think
Mhm.
with that said, like try to use whatever terminology is in the game.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Kyle. This might be new information to you, but some terminology around farm and wild Pokemon, um, the Pokemon Company would like us to use is instead of like farming wild Pokemon, they would like us to say capturing wild
Capturing,
Pokemon.
yeah.
I don't know if you've heard me say that before, but
Yeah.
they rather us say capture instead of farm. I think generally people understand like farming experience is like the thing, but like when you look at the specific animation of when you last hit a wild Pokemon, it's a little Pokeball comes out, it
Oh, true.
captures it, and then you get
Yeah.
the experience, right? So just some specific things that they've told us, they much would rather us use capture instead of farm. But I mean, that's no one's gonna be like, hey,
Yeah, they're not
no one's
gonna
gonna
knock
like
on your
hit you.
door.
Yeah,
Dupe Snacks literally
yeah.
said "hell yeah" on stage, and I don't think anybody's said anything about it.
Doom Snacks pushes boundaries,
He
man.
does.
It's so funny. And I'm like, can you say that?
No, usually not.
There's
Usually,
some things that he says that's like almost almost teetering on violent that
yeah,
he says.
yeah. So, what was this when he made this face? What was it when he said? I think it was like perfect when he was trying to say perfection, and he says perfection. And like, if someone, I don't think anybody would have like thought any of it, but he made this face. I just posted in the chat. He made this face, and I think I was like, oh. I don't think you're supposed to say that. um, yeah, AJ, like, yeah, they prefer you not use anything other than Pokemon. That's just general, at least for an official broadcast. I try not to. I think that's like across all games too.
Mhm.
They don't want you to use anything
Do you have
other
any other bullet points on the next page? Or is that
practice. I have a couple things on
Oh,
practice.
sorry. In the terminology, sorry.
Um,
There's a couple of other things
ooh,
that
yeah,
I've heard as well. This is from like official staff. Um, it is something that is commonly used in every MOBA, and I know it's long-winded, the other option that they want, but they would much rather us use central area Pokemon
yeah,
rather
it's
than
the
jungler.
jungle. Yeah,
That's like again, this is like as we get further down on this list, I would say the priority gets much less. I would say like they definitely don't want you to use kill, but they don't care as much if you use jungle, right?
yeah,
And that's both like central area, top path, bottom path, right?
yeah.
Jungle. But I think most people, most of the audience would understand what you're saying,
Oh
and you're
yeah, I
not going to
forgot to
get
add this
again.
one. I think just use central area, mid map, like anything other than Ray Pit because of just how it sounds. Um, I'll leave it at that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that they've been told, like, don't say this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Again,
most of it.
these are just like good guidelines. This is I think there's a lot of other terminology that I'm pretty sure like that is under the clause of be professional
Yeah,
and just like knowing your broadcast, right? There's like other things that we can add in here, like don't cuss, for example, or
yeah,
something, you
sure,
know.
of course. Um, yeah, I think that's majority of that portion. Um, last, I think this is the last section. Yeah, last section is just practice. And I think this is like really important for anybody that wants to be a caster. It's not just yapping. It may seem like at times it is just yapping, but just as like doing any craft or playing the game better, you need to get repetitions to improve that skill. It's the only way that you will improve. And it's not just practicing to practice. Sometimes maybe at the beginning it is, but eventually you will hit like kind of like a skill ceiling by doing just that. So once you just start like getting repetitions, kind of just getting the feel, getting comfortable with it, the other kind of key is to practice with intention. So being intentional about what you're practicing. Um, like for me and Husky at this point and like our tenure together, we're not just like ripping games together to get repetitions because we generally know how our flow is going to be. But if we have a big event or a big broadcast coming up, maybe there's like one portion that we felt was not our strongest in our previous broadcast. So like maybe we come together and say like, I really sucked at draft last event. Let's practice a couple drafts. Or maybe my Rayquaza was just terrible last event. Let's practice like 5 to 10 Rayquazas. There's so many different ways that you can practice. Or maybe it's you're practicing solo because it's something that you can only help yourself. It may not be something that you can practice with your partner. So, thinking about practicing with intention is really important to me. Anything else to add, Draco?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is really just how to practice a skill effectively, right? It's
Yeah,
not just
true.
for casting, but like after you've identified like what you want to improve in a certain repetition of something, right? This is just getting into skills development, not just casting in particular, but like after you've done that repetition, like just take a second to think about what you did. Like
Yeah.
what felt good, what didn't go well, like what do you want to change for your second repetition? Hell, if you're like, I felt great, let's do it again. Like that, just as long as you're taking a moment to think, breathe, and adapt if necessary, is so important for learning new skills or developing stronger skill set in certain skills. Right? Just being adaptive is important.
Yeah. And these,
Work smarter.
yeah, exactly. Some of the
Mhm.
things I just jotted down a couple. I obviously added a little bit before, but some like very specific ways to do. Obviously, VOD review is going to be very important, especially when you're first starting to understand what gaps you may have. You may think it's like it's so hard to watch yourself, but it's just going to be something that you have to get over because when I first started, I hated it, but I was like, okay, I just need to get over it because I want to get better. I don't want to just like keep doing the same mistakes over and over again. So eventually you just have to get over it. Watch your VODs. That's the only way you're going to
I watch
identify
Kyle's
some.
spots get better.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah. No.
Damn. That's crazy. That's so mean. That's so mean. Some of the things that you could do, like specifically as a color, the color analyst is going to be the one that should have the most game knowledge, or at least able to disseminate the game knowledge. And I think one thing other than like VOD review you could do is watching scrims for kind of like some intelligence, not intellion, but intelligence on what some of the top teams are playing for their compositions, maybe what the meta picks are going to be. I think other things that you can kind of do are kind of like researching teams, and I guess that depends on um, if it's a event that you're practicing for, like maybe there's just a couple specific teams that you're going to be casting, so maybe just doing a little bit of research on those teams to kind of get a little bit of a feel. Um, Play by play practice
This
though. I'll let
really
Drake
quickly.
go. Yeah.
This is not exclusive to just color casters, but a lot of the casting opportunities they're going to get is always going to be online. So honestly, just have Unite DB as a like
Yeah.
a second, third tab always available for you. And a color caster is kind of like the book nerd
Yeah.
of the two, in my opinion. So sometimes you just may need to refer back to some notes, and that notes is the perfect encyclopedia is Unite DB. So yeah.
Yeah. 1000%. Last thing of things that you could do as like a play-by-play caster, and this is something that I do from time to time, of reading a thesaurus. I'm not joking. Like literally read a thesaurus to find some different and more creative ways to describe some things that are happening. Whether
Nerd.
I know it's kind of silly, but like it does make a difference because if you say like retreat for the like 12th time, sometimes it just kind of gets boring. So find a way to kind of talk about that same activity in a different way. Turn tail, back down, fall back, back up, hide away, reel in. Like there's so many different ways to talk about something or describe something that's happened. I think the biggest thing that I took away from just like talking with people that cast other games, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Frosty. He does broadcasting for like college hockey, and he talked about something from one of my favorite hockey broadcasters, Doc Emmerich, who's now retired. Um, was he had a thing, and it was like 200 different ways to describe puck movement. And there are so many ways that you could describe different movement on screen, whether it's a team going forward, going backwards, um, pushing a pad, whatever the action may be. There's different ways to describe it. So be creative. And I think that's really fun. Anything to add, Mr. San?
No, I just called you a nerd.
No.
That's about it.
Fair. AJ said, something that you notice is casters miss big things like target bans, mistaken for meta, or play styles. That's interesting. I think sometimes it is kind of hard to, if something is kind of meta, of like understanding if it's a target ban because it's meta or a target ban because of a player or if it's just meta. But yeah, so that's something that like an experienced caster or someone that's very familiar with the team would be able to pick up if they watch
Mhm.
scrims. Because maybe against like a certain team, they're not banning Blissey, but maybe against, maybe against a very specific team, they're like, I do not want to play against this Blissey, but we can work around a regular Blissey.
Mhm.
But even though like Blissey's it's still a very strong support.
Yeah. I think piggybacking, or at least adding on to what AJ's saying, like I think a lot of the casters, and I would say like 90% and up, like don't talk to pro players.
Oh,
So it's
true.
just like
Yeah.
so it's just it's also like kind of difficult for sometimes casters to get into the minds of teams as to why a certain Pokemon was banned. I think meta or target bans is like the easiest cop out, but I mean, it's tough
Yeah.
sometimes. Depends on how invested a certain caster is in the community, and sometimes they only have that very high level as in limited knowledge of
Mhm.
these teams and how to play against these teams in draft.
Yeah. And sometimes it's something where you're going to have to do a little bit of research. Like for
Uh-huh.
Underdunk, I'm not going to do it, but like if like for the UCS events that I was on, brother, I spent so much time on Unite API looking at things happening. Obviously, we had like the whole day one broadcast to do too, which helps obviously. Writing down like, okay, we're probably gonna see this team tomorrow. Let's write down what did they end up ban, what did they end up picking, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have like an
Mhm.
idea. So it kind of goes into like two of like knowing the audience. What type of event are you casting? Is it Underdunk where it's more of like a little bit laid back, less on the line, that kind of stuff, or is it UCS where it's a qualifying cup or whatever it is? So very important to understand those things. But that is the end of that stuff. So from there, I did want to do a little bit of VOD review. I do have, I think Hyde's still here. I do have that game that you sent
Mhm.
me. I also have, if you prefer to not be on the spot, I do have a game that Husky and I did together last week that I also have locked and loaded that I haven't watched. but I thought it was, if from what I recall, it was very hype. Ended up blowing out my voice at the last moment, so I was like, "All right, I'm done."
Mhm.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right, I think I have that one pulled up, and I'm also gonna make sure that the audio is like not like super loud. Hopefully, it's not like blaring everybody's eardrums out. All right, so this is
It looks like Deku from My Hero.
Okay. Could say, oh yeah, this is the Griefers and Kedik.
Kedik.
All right, so we'll start at the top, and this, from my understanding, it's like game 3.
Okay.
Let me know if everybody can hear, if it needs to be a little bit. Oh wait, no, I need to turn that
Image
on.
is hidden. They're going to be picking it in the last 2 slots, or as little as possible. This is going to be their main carry Pokemon. And when you're that last pick, you can have whatever it is you pick for the carry, going to be able to just counter that.
Awesome. So without further
up?
ado, let's
Okay.
go ahead and see the ban phase here. We have Suicune on the side of Midnight Griefers being banned, possibly from the last 2 fights, if I might add. But Blissey being banned as well, possibly a target ban, or they just don't think that they're going to pick it in this strategy. Hyde, do you feel like this Decidueye ban, or looks like it's being changed to Zeraora. Do you think that Zeraora ban might have been a target ban yet again for our friend Monk?
Oh, for sure. There's no way they were going to let that Zeraora come in again. If they did, that would have been insane after that game. You have to pick Pokemon to counter it specifically. But again, as in a first pick slot, you're giving it there. But Clefable is coming out as a ban. Blissey's coming out as a ban. And they first picked the Ho-Oh. Oh my gosh, Kedik, you have the opportunity to disrespect the Midnight Griefers and lock in that Charizard. There it is! They do it! They know they wanted the Charizard. They didn't take it. They're like, listen, we gotta be smart. We gotta take that Ho-Oh first. And Kedik is like, I know you do, man, so we're gonna take it. Your Charizard plays for us. Urgh.
Yes. And it's Sai time over here on the side.
I'm gonna pause a couple of times, because I do have like some notes.
Yeah, I got a couple of things too. You go first.
I want Hyde. Hyde, do you go by Hyde or Jonathan? Do you have a preference? And feel free to unmute if you want. Hyde. Okay, that's what I thought.
Hydathan.
That's Hydathan. That's wild. Maybe if you want to maybe give a little bit of how you think that went, and maybe have a guess on what I might say or what Draku may say. Because I have 2 notes thus far.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, we can hear you. How's it going?
No, hang on. I think I gotta hook up. See, this is what I mean. Like, it's actually Mimikyu's.
But yeah, all right. But no, for this one, we were. I think I did hype up a Charizard pick because they did ban it all set so far, and that is kind of like one of the players on the side of Midnight Griefers. That's like their go-to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was their plan or whatnot of picking it, but it is. Yeah, it's MC Char,
Yeah,
so it's like you gotta leave it up.
Ban this D as MC Char.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like one of those. I think I spent too much time going over and hyping it up, though.
Yeah, I have 2 notes. Draku may agree here. The first note.
No, I disagree.
Oh, okay, that's fine. The first note I had was actually for Thube, and obviously this is being recorded, so she can kind of get this feedback too. Was when the draft is happening, I don't like to pre-talk about something unless it's a foregone conclusion. And you'll see it
Okay.
happen again at one point where she starts talking about something and then it completely changes last minute. So I usually try. That's like one thing, and it also kind of like when it does change, it kind of like throws things off a little bit. So that's like kind of like one thing to be be a little bit weary of when that does happen. From here, let me read my note. So at the 14:30 mark, so that's where I paused it. I think that you potentially could have handed it off a little bit earlier, and I'll kind of explain the why. There was like a very long pause at one point, and I think it would have been like after that Ho-Oh pick was like dropped in, it would have been like a really good time to hand off because you could have had Thube kind of analyze why Ho-Oh is a safe or a good first pick. Maybe someone might not be, well aware of it. And then you kind of have like it just kind of ended up being a little bit more long-winded. I think it was like 45 seconds. Just kind of talking with like between like three things. I like from like a draft perspective, I really like things moving pretty quickly, like 1 point and then like try to pass it off as soon as possible is kind of like the thing that I try to think about when drafting, like going through draft.
Okay.
Drake, I think you had something.
Sure, I have two things as well. So the first thing is more of just a suggestion to help with the earlier phases of draft, and then the other one is I would say a correction towards. But once you get towards the ends of draft, right? So the four bands: Blissey, Clefable, Suicune, and Zeraora. It's a really good opportunity to talk about a process of elimination. So these Pokemon aren't going to be here. What are the likely strong meta picks going to be the very first picks, right? I think for both you and the your co-cast, you're kind of just waiting for whatever the first picks are. But this is a really good opportunity to talk about what you think is going to be first picked here. So right now you see it's two of the premier supporters being banned out. What supporters are available? Are they going to be high prio? Or are there any other picks like Ho-Oh, Charizard that are really strong in the metagame that are most likely going to be prio in the first couple of picks, right? And then the second one is more of a correction, but try to be sparing with your excitement. When Ho-Oh was first picked here, I don't know again what the first two games were like, if that's a really surprising pick, but try not to be super excited to the point where it almost sounds disingenuous. And so if you're excited all the time, that doesn't really mean that you're excited.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? So try to be sparing and giving the audience the right opportunities for them to be excited with you, because being excited all the time just reduces the value of being excited when it is actually exciting.
Okay.
Those are my things.
Yeah. That's a good point too.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think I have the same feedback with or very a very similar feedback I think with Lobo. And I got this feedback when I first started casting too. I was trying to make too many jokes or trying to make too many puns. Like,
He's a funny guy.
I know. Like, you're just trying to be funny sometimes. It's a little bit like Drake said, it's a little bit disingenuous. If you try to make everything funny, then nothing's funny. Save those moments for a good moment or a hype moment, and you'll be golden. So yeah, that's like the funny thing too. I think Lobo had that moment when the game that he gave me. I think like within the first minute, he tried to make like 3 jokes, and I'm like, I don't know if any of them hit. I was like, I don't know if any of them hit.
I feel that sometimes I'm like, oh man, are these hitting? I have no idea because I have no one to bounce these off of.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, like this is like, I think this was the second duo cast with Thu. We did another one the night before. We were just practicing some games and whatnot together, so we were like a little bit more prepared for that. So, but yeah, it was, yeah, I definitely do that. I definitely throw a lot of jokes in there.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm ready
point.
to keep going.
Yeah, we'll keep going. Actually, Cinehita asked,
Oh, sorry.
Caster's thing seems interesting, but don't you think it's so much analysis of the game is exhausting? It's just that they're in championship for too many hours, yet they still have a lot of energy. Yeah, that's why you have like rotations. That's why like you'll see like Dupe Spriggles cast a game or a set, and then you'll have a rotation. So like to kind of keep
Dude,
that
and
energy.
I had like 3 energy drinks in the span of like 6 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the way it is.
And AJ asked, is G Dash Rapidash what you're supposed to call like A9? Yeah, I mean the Pokemon definitely have nicknames, and they haven't like really said that you can't call them by
Yeah.
like the shorter name. So it's generally been okay as long as you don't call
Yeah.
them like something completely wrong. I guess I don't know. Because I think Galarian Rapidash, like you definitely hear sometimes like the casters fully say it, but yeah, sometimes they'll call it the horse or something a little
Mhm.
bit, whatever. Let's see. All right, cool.
Okay, here we go.
Of Kedic as well. But we're locking in the defender and the support on the side of Midnight Griefers with Slowbro and another change. Alcremie for the heals.
Oh, there we go. Alcremie is a fantastic pick going into Psyduck, whether you go with the Decorate or the Dazzling Gleam. But if you're going to go Decorate, you've got to have a really strong damage dealer to go with it. Now, Ho-Oh is a carry Pokemon after the latest update. But with the heals from the Recover, I'm just going to say it right now. Those heals are busted. They're broken. They are so strong that they could swing fights.
Definitely. But I feel like Kedic is onto something here with that Goodra. I mean, it feels like worked last game for them, so why not pick it again? And a Buzzwall for extra stuns on the side of Kedic.
Yeah, that Buzzwell's going to be a menace for sure. But they're picking that Goodra again. They're like, listen, this guy was putting in the work. We're going to run him again. And the Midnight Griefers saw this, and they're like, listen, this now means we can't run the Gardevoir. So we're going to pick the Mewtwo Y. Why are we picking Mewtwo Y? That Psy Strike is so strong. Being able to slow its targets, inflict a stun and a jump and a bounce and whatever else is going to come in. And the Unite move, so important. Being able to give vision on the entire enemy team when used, no matter where they are on the map.
Right. And we can discredit the Ceruledge here too. I feel like it's a really good pick when it comes to comps like this. Just being able to dive in there and really be that front line for them in those big team fights, especially at Ray. I'm going to be curious to see how that pans out. And it's an X attack instead of something like a full heal against stuns like Psyduck and Buzzwall. But we'll see how this pans out, Hyde.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Draku, is there any thoughts that you had there?
I think this is just more of a stylistic thing and something that I like to do as a color caster. But talking at this point of the draft and before the game starts, or relationships between Pokemon, I think the general community knows like why certain Pokemon are really strong, right? Like Psystrike Mewtwo Y is really strong. It has these certain effects. Your co-caster was talking about Ceruledge being a really good front line, but why are those certain attributes good or bad into the enemy team? Right. One of the points that Kyle was talking about before is like, for example, how is the Absol going to get to the Gardevoir, right? That's a really easy relationship to talk about. One thing I would talk about here is talking about the tempo, right? Tempo for the top side team, Buzzwole, really strong, Psyduck really strong in the early game, but who are they trying to really enable in this early game is going to be this Charizard. How fast are they going to get this Pokemon to level 9? Right. So just talking about relationships is a really good thing to fill time as a color caster, especially when you have long-winded moments like this, when you have like 30 to 60 seconds for final prep. And then you also have this loading thing here, and then the first couple of seconds of the match as well.
Yeah, I think AJ kind of hits it here too. If you look in the text chat, and this is very high level stuff that maybe you don't see at a lot of the grassroots, but you should probably see them at more of the UCS broadcasts of like, why certain picks are taken. Maybe it's not strong, but
Mhm.
this pick is a good counter into something that we already grabbed. So now you're
Mhm.
kind of depriving the enemy side of something. Another thing that you could have talked about too is um, another thing you could have talked about too is Slowbro. I don't think anybody talked about Slow Beam on an ulting Charizard or a uniting Charizard. It's a great way to shut that down.
Mhm.
I think you'd probably see, I'm not sure, I can't remember if we do or not, but like if I'm that Slowbro, that is my one target to unite. I think maybe I'm looking to unite Buzzwole if it gets absolutely insane, but 9 times out of 10, maybe even like 99 times out of 100, I think the best play for this Slowbro is to unite the Charizard. So one thing to talk about is Charizard being maybe a little bit more cautious around the Slowbro and making
Mhm.
sure Slowbro doesn't have Slow Beam. So stuff like niche interactions or specific interactions are always like really good to kind of prep the viewer of what they need to be paying attention for and maybe what the teams are looking at.
Yeah, like I was saying, towards the end of draft and before the game actually starts, talking about relationships is so important. AJ is kind of talking about it and why Buzzwole is a really good pairing for Charizard, or why Buzzwole is a really good counter to Charizard, and why this team picked Buzzwole. Right, they
Mhm.
picked Buzzwole because it's a Pokemon that's really good into Charizard. So by picking it for their team, it means it's not going to be on the enemy team.
Yep.
Right. So relationships are really, really, really important in this phase.
Yeah. Full heal is for the cereal. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and those are all things a good color caster should pick up on. Maybe they don't pick up on all of them, but being able to pick up on multiple ones prior to the game is very important and kind of what separates like a good color caster maybe from like an average one, because those are all things that the players are going to be cognizant of, should be something that the casters are cognizant of too, because
Mhm.
it's very important. Very important. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think in terms of just how much weight you want to put on these various topics, I would say relationships between Pokemon is number one priority. And then talking about why a Pokemon is generally strong should have it's things that you can take a nod to, but it shouldn't amount to any more than like a sentence or two.
Yeah.
Like we all know Charizard's Unite move is really strong. You don't really need to talk more about that. We all know that Slow Beam Unite move is really strong. We don't really need to talk about that a whole lot, right? So stray away from talking about individual strengths, because most people know about those already. Talk about and flex the relationships, the knowledge of those relationships between Pokemon on the same team or against each other.
Yeah, like
Okay.
talk about like, especially like think about those unite moves together. I think we hit on that earlier in our talk, but like Mewtwo Y unite into a Seru unite, you're gonna stun them and then just delete them. Like that's a good way to kind of set up Seru to get the vision. Ho-Oh obviously is a great unite move that can maybe enable Midnight Griefers to take a disadvantageous fight, knowing that they can just have a Ho-Oh res as long as they get like 2 or 3 KOs. Maybe they lose 2 Pokemon, but they could get them right back. So talking about like future state and things to watch out for. Always good. All right.
Both teams are actually
Continue
looking
onward.
really fairly even in terms of scaling here. We have the Alcremie and the Slowbro coming online at level 4, Psyduck Glaceon coming online at level 4. We also have that Holo Buzzwole mimicking each other for level 5s, and the Cerro Ledge and the Mewtwo Y going toe-to-toe with the Goodra
Same.
and the Charizard.
Same, AJ. Like you need a
All
Jack
right,
Down
let's go ahead and
Slowbro.
start on the side of Midnight Griefer since they were the first pick in this round here. It looks like they're sending that Sarah in that jungle with Midnight Griefer sending Mewtwo down bot with its Slowbro.
They are indeed. It usually is an attacker and the tank going into the bot side lane. Sometimes you opt for a utility support attacker there, sporting that EXP share, but more commonly you do see the attacker and the defender going into the same lane.
Yes, looks like we're getting some push here on the side of.
Just a quick clarification from me. Was the intent here to have you as play-by-play and Thube being the color caster?
Yeah, We fell into that trap
Yeah.
of swapping roles a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice that a little bit. But it does happen. It does happen from especially if you're either new to casting or new to casting with each other. We all do it. But
Yeah.
good to know. Good to know.
Midnight Griefers hide, and unfortunately they weren't able to secure the farm that they were trying to contest.
No, keeping that pressure on early is definitely how Midnight Griefers is going to get back into this game. These are early Pokemon coming in on the side of Kedik, so the way to keep them down is to get ahead, but know that Glaceon secures it and evolve. Level 4, that is going to hurt. They're no longer able to keep it Evo locked, which means that this Glaceon will eventually be able to get to 6. And the way it's going to be 6 really, really soon. We do have these
Let's go ahead
850
and head
birds
over to that
spawning
top
in.
birds. Yes.
I'm gonna pause it right here. And what did we notice? What did we notice here?
We noticed that the play-by-play caster ended right before the 850 birds, and then when I tried to jump in, when I already ended the thought. So I should have. I feel like I should have stayed off, but then I tried to jump back in to cast it to try to get us back on track, and then
Yeah.
Thoob jumped in, so then we got a little bit of chaos. So yeah.
It's perfect analysis of what happened. And that was kind of what I wanted to clarify, because that was the first thing that I noticed and why it's so important. While obviously you can never have like a standard issue first minute and a half of the game because every game's different, but having like
Yeah.
a plan and trying to stick into those roles as much as you can at the beginning is going to set you up for success, because it ended up being like this weird flip, just unfortunate timing, honestly, where like you're caught doing color, and then by the time your thought's done, it's like 8:52, and it's like, oh, do I just stop here? Yeah, so it just kind of an unfortunate like chain of events of like perfectly explaining why like try to stick into those roles as much as you can, and you can really do that at the beginning of the match because most of the time it's going to be pretty similar to other matches. So yeah, very, very unfortunate, but it does happen. Yeah, but good observation. That was exactly what I was going to say.
All right, we have Midnight Griefers zoning out as well. Kedik backing off. This is not a fight they want to take right now. Ceruledge is going to be farming, and it looks like they are going to be rotating back into their jungle to start continuing the grind to level 7.
Yes, it looks like we're level-wise, we are pretty much even in terms of levels. We're getting a lot of the level 5s online here. Sarah is level 6. And it's about 15 seconds left for Midbirds here, and we do have a little Psyduck getting ready to set up for that side of Kedik.
Psyduck is definitely providing that vision for the side of Kedik there, but Slowbro doing the same thing. Mewtwo coming out, put a nice side strike on that Goodra, showing them exactly why we picked it. But Glaceon picking up the KO on the Ceruledge, the first victim to fall of this match. Side strike coming out, hitting the Charizard as Mewtwo walks away, getting picked off by the Glaceon as Buzzwole soon falls to the Ho-Oh.
Yes, and it looks like we got Glaceon another kill here on that Alcremie.
That Alcremie grabs a KO, but we have a triple for the side of...
All right, I have a couple of things. One, I thought that was really good. I thought the setup from Thoob was very good. It was set up like at a really reasonable time for that fight to start. You picked up on a few like really key things, like the Psy Strike connecting, the KOs being found, the Slowbro finding vision, like all those things, very good. And I thought you ended at a good time, and I think what happened was like you paused because you were ready to hand it over, and then Thoob didn't pick it up, so you were going to start again. Is that kind of probably what happened there?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was just the dead time was just too long, so I was like, all right, I'll jump back in. I'll find her another spot.
Draco, I know you're talking. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Let's see. I think that trying to take it for face value. I know you two were trying to get back into your rhythm of getting her back into color, and then you back into play by play. But there was a moment there for your. So what is your color caster's name? Thube, is that her name?
Thube, yeah.
Thube.
Thube. Okay, yeah. I think there was a moment there for Thube that she was doing some color moments. It was a color moment on like the gameplay, but it was almost as if
Yeah.
she was casting the non-important parts of the game that was going on, like while Pokemon were being captured, or taking a little too long talking about the levels, and like kind of going down almost in an itemized list of what each level is. I think when you're talking about levels of Pokemon, just talk about what the important ones are. Like, are Pokemon hitting their stage 2? Is stage 3 evolution? Do they have their primary abilities online? Like things like that. But I think there was a solid like 15 to 30 seconds of talking about non-significant information where other things could have been talked about during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Cool.
Kedic being able to lock that in for the Glaceon. This is a menace. That Glaceon's already level 7, level 8, the first Pokemon in this match with its Unite move, as we are now 15 seconds away from these first objectives.
Yes, we have Glaceon doing its thing, throwing those Ice Cold Spears down. Mewtwo doing its job on hitting that Goodra, trying to secure a kill, but unfortunately Goodra was just a little tanky in this scenario. Its passive is popping out right now to get it some healing in this lovely grass area, and it looks like we're getting ready to start both objectives. It looks like it's split again.
It is.
I'm gonna pause there. Any thoughts? Anything that you would do differently in that moment?
I'm honestly not sure. I think that was a tough one for me to cast because there wasn't a whole lot of action going on. So when there's not a lot going on, but we're leading into objectives and whatnot, that's kind of like where I struggle.
I think one thing that is kind of your best friend is using the interface of the spectator mode here. So like if you don't know what's happening, like the minimap is like a very important thing to look at, especially in these when teams are starting to diverge into various parts of the map, like where players going, where our team is starting to congregate. As you can see here, there's a like two frontiers of battle, both in the top and the bottom path. Sometimes in games you see one team devote everything into the top path and or the bottom path. Like that's something you can talk about as well. And then within that path themselves, if you see the camera or your observer going to that area, like focus on what's going on in that particular part of the map, and don't necessarily ignore the other part, but prioritize that part of the map. What are the relationships between the Pokemon that are present where the camera is going?
Okay.
Yeah, I think as a color or as a play-by-play caster, if I ever find myself in those moments, personally, I think you do a good job. Like you were in a color moment, and I think what you were trying to do was try to hand it off to Thube. But like one way that you could have gotten back into your designated roles, you talk about how Glaceon ticks into their level 8. It's a great call out. It's the first Pokemon that gets it. And then you have this amazing moment. It comes to fruition. You talk about it getting its Unite move, and then it uses it immediately for an engage. I think that could have been a really good pop off. Like you had that intuition that they could have used it, and they did. But then you didn't even, then you didn't take it. I would have probably just talked about, no, and then they use that Unite move. And then you kind of take it from there. Obviously, it didn't really amount to anything, but you don't know that in the moment. You could have, you talk about, okay, well, it didn't get the KO. People come in for reinforcements, blah, 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 blah. And then you can hand it back off to Thube. I think that could have been a really good kind of moment because that was a good call out. And then it happened.
All right. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Split. Kedic and Midnight Griefers wasting no time going into this Regieleki fight. The Buzzwole is getting caught out, and their Midnight Griefers are doing an excellent job waiting for their Ceruledge to come up to try to grab the KO on this. Buzzwole's looking for an opportunity. Grabs the hoe, but Ceruledge grabs the secure on the Regieleki, reverse pushes, grabs the KO on the Buzzwole, and grabs the knockout on this on the Psyduck, and we saw Slowbro secure the Registeel. So now Midnight Griefers is now in a powerful position, being able to take a 39 over on this dunk, coming back into this game to 134 to 119.
Yes. And it looks like both of these teams are battling out once again in the midsection here. Sarah going down.
I'm going to pause there because I wanted to call it something that was good. And I liked that you did use in that moment, you heard it, you used that mini map to talk about a cross map moment where not only they got the objective in the top path, that Regieleki, but they also got the basement Reggie, the Registeel, which is very big. I think maybe like with a little bit of practice, you could probably be a little bit more succinct in those points. But I think being able to talk about both of those is really strong, a very like advanced thing to pick up on. So good job on that.
Down by that Glaceon we've been seeing all game, and as they're making their way to top, it looks like they're doing a lovely push here. Ho trying to go in for that kill with the Alcremie. Alcremie popping its ult here, and unfortunately the side of Kedic was pushed back. They ended up pushing back. They did not want to send more than one of their teammates to that Pokemon Center.
No, Midnight Griefers doing a great job being able to keep this momentum going. Jump pads are not up for 28 seconds. We did just have a quick return there. The points are going to be raining in. They're going to be taking the lead of 192 to 154 for Midnight Griefers as Kedic now looks to zone them out, come back, and punish them for coming too deep into their territory.
Yes.
One thing that I'm noticing here is I think you might be like a little bit apprehensive to like call the moment because like you're like throwing in bits of color casting in the moment when you can, as a play-by-play, your job is not necessarily to analyze why. Your job is to kind of like, what is happening? What is going on the screen? And because you were kind of trying to analyze, it was kind of like a little bit of like a delayed call of what was actually happening, and it kind of loses the pizzazz because that was like a really big moment for Midnight Griefers, and it could have been like very succinct, like whoever, I can't remember who went back to base. X goes back to base, but Midnight Griefers on a full offensive, they're gonna push into this T2 goal zone, points rain down, and Kedic unable to respond, and then boom, you're done. Hand it over to Thube, and she can explain, okay, there's no jump pad, so this is a really good push. They take the lead. They make a big dent in that T2 goal zone, and they're not punished at all. They don't lose any KOs, or they don't yield any KOs the other way. Like, that's kind of like that synergistic relationship. So if you're able to kind of stick in the what is happening right now in the moment, that enables to kind of like have that post-fight breakdown of what happened. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that you are right, and I think part of that is falling into some bad habits, doing a bunch of solo casting because I'm still not used to doing duo cast and stuff like that. So I'm used to like doing it all at once. So I'm like, and I'm starting to see that too. Like as I've watched this VOD back like probably 4 or 5 times by now. Yeah. So it's like I'm starting to notice, like compared to other things, I'm like, I'm doing that because I'm used to solo casting, or I'm doing that because of that, or that because of that. And I'm starting to realize, but I'm also doing these things because I got a partner. So it's like, yeah, it's yeah.
Draku?
No, you did. You explained it well, Kyle.
Nice. I do some things right every once in a while.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that too. I think one of like general consensus feedbacks was I did notice that you were leaning into that color roll a lot, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's telling of like where your mind's at as a caster, and maybe that means that you can be a little bit more color oriented or be able to flex into that color roll, which I think is a good thing. It's something that I would end up doing from time to time too when I was first beginning, because I want to like prove that I know what I'm talking about, even if I didn't.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't from time to time. Sometimes I cook a little too hard in the cook a little too hard in the kitchen and have like really bad takes, but sometimes you get validated by your love of leftovers and EXP share
Yeah,
Maridon.
leftovers. Fuck out of here.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
All
No
right,
one else
Shedinja
talked about
Doll.
it. Shedinja
Okay.
Doll Latios is
Alright.
the play. You heard it here
Whatever.
first. That's the only way
Press
to play.
play.
That's the only way to play
Press play.
Latios.
Press play.
Press play. All right.
We have going down. Speaking of down, we have the Ceralich doing some farming as the Ho-Oh is here to take cover here. Ho-Oh and Seru are trying to do its best to take down this Goodra, but it's so tanky, Hyde.
That Goodra is a tanky beast indeed. There's not going to be much that's going to be able to take it down quickly. When you don't have a ranged attacker like the Gardevoir that's able to ignore the special defense, Goodra's special defense buffs is just going to run away.
Yes.
What that means
And luckily we had the Ho-Oh res here, getting the kills off the team of Kedic. And unfortunately, its team wasn't able to hold down the pad. But we don't have enough points to break unless... Oh, it looks like Saida came just in time to break that pad. And for what cost? Buzzwole was able to score top, and the side of Midnight Griefers was able to secure that bot, Reggie.
They were indeed. Leaving that bottom pad on 1 with 2 minutes to go to Rayquaza is not a bad tech at all. That means when you come into this when you come into the double points and score your Hundo Burger, that is effectively a whole pad break going in on top of that 879 points. But we are zoning into here, going for this Ray fight. Mewtwo Unite coming out. Huge stunts for the side of them. Charizard Unite coming in. The first one we've seen on stream and caught with the casting. Coming through, grabbing it. But no, the Ceralich comes in with a huge Unite move. KOing 1, 2, and 3. 4 Pokemon for the Quadra KO. Sending Regieleki down to the side of Kedic as they now look to grab farm and push the tier 1 pad.
I have kind of like a recommendation here, and this is something a stylistic thing, but also like I think it works really well. And when we're talking about like synergistic relationships between the color and the play-by-play, and when so a little bit of background here. So for March Cup, originally it was going to be me and Zero in on Alex, and then it was going to be Husky and Sierra. So like me and Zero, we're both play-by-play, so we both lean play-by. Well, Alex is full play-by-play. I lean play-by-play, but I can flex the color. So I was going to be doing color, and then Alex was going to do play-by-play. And one of the things that we talked about in our casting practice was how to transition from the fight into a color moment. And in this moment, I think you could have handed off like once that hype moment like just dissipates. Like one thing that you'll see me do a lot is I'm casting, like at least with Husky, I am casting the moment. I'm in the moment. I'm talking about everything that happens. And then like everything kind of leads up to this climactic point where everything comes to fruition for one side, right? In that moment, it's Midnight Griefers getting that Quadra KO. Once I'm able to finish that call of that fight, I'm done. I'm handing it off, and I'll actually I'm when we're done, I'll pull up a fight, the Ray fight for my last game, because I think I after the game, it was the game where like my voice was completely ripped. I said Husky, I was like, I gave that everything I had, and I think it might have been like our best like back and forth that we had at Array. And it's just like a good example of you lead up to this big moment. The moment happens as a play-by-play caster. the biggest thing you could do, and this is not just video games, this is sports, whatever. You have that big moment and then just let the moment be, let the moment end there, and then let your color commentator break it down. In this game, obviously the color commentator is breaking it down a lot faster. In like a sports environment, you'll see a lot of the times those play-by-play announcers call that big moment and let the crowd roar and hear it out. And it's a little bit different in esports, but that's kind of what I like to do, because like you kind of like, once that climactic moment hits, everything after that, you're losing people. And that might be a stylistic thing, but I think personally it works really well because I watch a lot of sports, so I try to model like what I do off of like what other successful commentators try to do.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off of that, and there's a pretty good example of kind of the opposite that's happening here, where you almost handhold the audience's energy back down to a lower level, which you don't want to do. So, Kyle, can you go back to when they take this Reggie Alecki and then how he dissipates the energy from there?
Yeah.
So you can go back and be like one more. There, right here is fine.
The side of Midnight Griefers was able to secure that bot, Reggie.
While they're pivoting up, also there was a play-by-play moment at the bottom that you kind of both of you kind of missed. There was like a big tier 1 push. They got a lot of scores on the bottom.
Oh yeah.
We're talking about like Gudra special defense and a Gardevoir or something. So just something to know how just the juxtaposition between the two play-by-play moments. A really good play-by-play moment happened coming up here in a few seconds, but missing that play-by-play moment in the tier 1. Just so seeing the two differences is a little stark. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, good call.
Plaza is not a bad tech at all. That means when you come into this when you come into the double points and score your Hundo Burger, that is effectively a whole pad break going in on top of that 879 points. But we are zoning into here, going for this Ray fight. Mewtwo Unite coming out. Huge stunts for the side of them. Charizard Unite coming in.
Good.
The first one we've seen on stream and caught with the casting coming through, grabbing it. But no, the Ceruledge comes in with
energy
a
really
huge
high here.
Unite move, KOing 1, 2, and 3. 4 Pokemon for the quad.
Yeah.
And then ending it right here. And then right here, where you see you're kind of hand holding their energy back down to this. So end that. They got a Quadra KO, stamp it there. Let your color caster take it from there.
I would even say like you could have, and I've done this plenty of times too. When you think that they only got 3 and then they actually got 4. I'll just like, if I say 3, I'm saying 3 and then I'm ending it. And if they got 4, or if they got 5, Colorcaster can pick that up because I have effectively stopped my call, and it's okay. It happens all the time. I don't know how many times that's happened where I'm just like, you end up that, I think ending it on the triple KO, and then Thoob could come in and say, I actually got 4 out of that big 4 KO, and then break down, okay, Slowbro actually had a huge Unite move. The Slow Beam on the Charizard really put an end to any thoughts that Kedic was able to push that objective, and Midnight Griefers capitalized completely on that Ceruledge Unite. Something like that, that's short, it's quick, it's to the point, it breaks it down, and by the time she's done saying that, you're already back into this fight now. And she could hand that back off to you at this moment because there's already starting to be another push, right? Like, this is Midnight Griefers now taking that win into this bottom push. But, like, you don't lose anything there. You don't lose any timing because you allowed that color caster to break down that moment. And when she's done, she can hand this right back off to you on a silver platter, and you have another great play-by-play moment almost immediately after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lucian, Char, and Psyduck on the side of Kedic going ahead and defending against that Reggie, but leaving that bot tier 2 be broken hide, and quite by a lot as well, if I might add.
Oh, yes. 321 to 196. Midnight Griefers has the advantage in this fight. Not only in points, but also in levels. 14 on the Sarah Ledge, 13 on the Ho-Oh, while Charizard, Buzzwole, Glaceon, dreaming of it, sitting at a measly level 12.
Right. And Hyde, I do want to point out we are at the 30-minute mark here, or 30-second mark here, and
Damn,
we
long
are
game.
down quite a few ults. They really
Super.
tried, I feel like, to contest the top Regieleki here. And we'll see if they're able to farm up or have their ults come up just in time for them to take on any fighting at Ray. And it looks like Ho is starting the engage here.
The important
I
Unites.
want to pause this right here because I this is a good example. Well, one, I really love Thub like trying to hand this off
It's a
to
good
you
handoff,
because
yeah. That was
she
good.
thinks like the moment's starting. So I think that's a good like call out. Like, hey, this might be breaking out a little bit early. You'll see it doesn't necessarily, so that's okay. But I think like having like that breakdown, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about of like the 2:15 to 3-minute mark. Really look to talk about like those win conditions.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Are online for the side of Midnight Griefers. We have the Ho-Oh Unite and the Sarah Ledge Unite. Ho-Oh needs to stay alive and staying up in order to bring its team back. It has the points to do so, and they got to be playing for that. They got to be playing for that kind of a play. If there's so many Unite moves on the side of Kedik there, if they go down, they revive, come back, Unite moves, swing the fight the other way. That's one of the best ways to come back and one of the best ways to utilize this Ho-Oh Unite move.
And this kind of like breaks it back down to that of the importance of, and this just comes with practice, right? Understanding the role and understanding and having trust and faith in your partner to hand it back to you. Cause like you started talking at 2:15 because there was potentially a fight. If this is like Husky and I casting, she's handing off, and there's that engage. And then I'm talking about what that engage was, and then if there's anything else after that. But if I see them back out, I'm handing it. I'm throwing that as fast as I can back to Husky because I don't want to waste my voice, especially if I'm sick, on a call that's not gonna amount to like the fight. So now you're kind of like 30 seconds in, and all you've done is really the color's job of explaining the Unite economy, the Unite move economy, like who has it, who doesn't, what Ho-Oh needs to do. I think you make a lot of great color points. I will say your color commentary in this game is actually really good because you do a really good job of explaining like the situation at hand, the whys and stuff. So
Yeah.
if nothing else,
Thank you.
the why is really good.
And let's go ahead and look at where the Sarah is positioned here, Hyde. We're looking at an engage here, and the Sarah's just waiting for its opportunity to kill.
And this
Sarah Ledge diving.
This is a good handoff from Thub too. So she does 12 seconds, 15 seconds at most, hands it off, talks about a potential engage, and then you see it comes to fruition. Sarah Ledge hits a really big engage onto the Psyduck. I think maybe hits one other, but like this onward, I have notes on it, but they're all good. I think it's a really good Ray fight. So
in right now, huge Unite move coming through, picks up 1-2 targets there, picking up the KO on the Psyduck. Charizard also goes down. Ho-Oh Unite bringing back the Mewtwo. Fallen Revival is one of their worst nightmares. Goodra goes down. Buzzwole's hanging on by a thread, also fallen. Glaceon nowhere to be seen. Now trying to stay alive, so that waiting for Kedik to respawn. What an
I think this goes back to that point that we made earlier. I think this is a really good Ray fight. I would have ended this a little sooner. Like Glaceon, nowhere to be found. Or just talk about the KO that's going to happen. Either way would have been perfectly acceptable because I think you kind of know mostly of how the next like 20 seconds are going to go. Like Griefers, they still have 2 down. A couple of low HP bars, they may have to reset. You're just now starting to see some people come out. That gives you a little bit of breathing room for what is inevitably going to be the next engage. Because looking at their team right now, Sarah Ledge is down. Who is going to rip the objective?
Yeah.
Nobody on Midnight Griefers. So you have a little bit of time
Yeah,
to
exactly.
breathe here. So it's a good time to like hand over to the color at that point. And again,
Okay.
this comes with experience. I cannot stress that enough. That is like probably casting like 2 or 301 of like perfecting Ray fights, because I think even like for me, my like aha moment wasn't until like maybe last summer in the Indigo League, when I was casting a lot with Draco and we worked a lot together, and then even like further on, like end of summer, maybe like into the fall, when Husky and I really started to like ramp up for UCS and try to like really make our name and try to like really perfect us as a pair. That's when we started clicking. So it does take quite a bit to like get to that point. But
Yeah.
it's something to think about as you continue practicing.
I think there was a moment towards the end of that league where I was like, Kyle, I'm just throwing all the Rayquazas at you, just so you know. It's all you, bro.
Yeah. What was that one? We had like a really good one. We made like a couple of like really good puns in it too. I think like there's a good moment for was it Brouhaha? Like, oh, there's so many good like clips from that league that we had.
Excellent zone and an excellent push from the side of Midnight Griefers.
Yes, and luckily the Glacian was able to get away, but do they have enough time, Hyde, to secure this raid? Do they have the rip that's needed? Can Midnight Griefers really push in here and make sure that they secure this victory to stay in the game?
They definitely have the tools to do so, but Kedic is not allowing them to do it. They're ripping the Rayquaza while also spreading them out and keeping them separated. That Rayquaza is really low. Here it comes in. Huge secure for the side of Midnight Griefers. Slowbro, the stealth sniper, coming and grabbing it in a full team-wide KO for the side of Midnight Griefers.
Great job.
This is insane.
Yes.
Midnight Griefers picking up their first win of the night and the first win within the Zygarde League. It took them 3 weeks to do it, but they have proven to everybody we are not out of this back, and this is only the beginning.
Yes, Hyde. And we're at a
Gonna pause. Thoughts, things that you would change?
No. I think I handled it pretty well. I think I had the energy levels on point. I did highlight the fact that this was their first win, and like this was a huge moment for the team.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that was accentuated and brought out on broadcast. So like I wanted to make sure that was super hyped.
Yeah. I did like the call out, the context of it. I think that's very important. Draco, any thoughts?
I think it's more of just a general overview of what I thought as for the entire game, but nothing specific for this moment. I can save that.
Yeah. Hype was good.
Okay.
Liked it. Cool. I did want to show that kind of like the stylistic thing I was talking about. I think I have
Midnight Griefers.
Yeah.
This is insane. Midnight Griefers picking.
Here we go. This is from this is from last week. Is this
Who's
this
casting?
is Barrel. This is me and Husky casting this moment. We're like kind of like entering the final stretch phase. So we're kind of getting up to it. Like context of here. This was a fun game. Barrel of Monkeys is both squads rocking all rounders. Game 1, they did all. Did they do all? No, they did all speedsters. Everybody did a speedster in game 1. So this was generally like a super fun set to cast. Yeah. So, but that's just a little bit of context to it. But yeah, it was super fun. But I just want to kind of show like how we handle like the last minute before Ray and moving forward, and kind of like some things.
Okay.
Sound helps, right? Sound helps usually.
It's just
Oh, yeah.
about on the clock, and Urshifu has reached level 13, but 3 level 13s have been reached on Barrel of Monkeys' side. All of the carry all-rounders, as opposed to the supportive all-rounders. Tinkaton at this point just likely looking for some stacks. Very late Unite move from them will come out.
Yeah, and they are fully stacked. You saw that massive Gigaton Hammer eject play to take out the Zacian. That's a double KO. This is what you got to be fearing if you're Barrel of Monkeys. Tinkaton getting online, level 13. But good response from Barrel of Monkeys. They're going to get 1, not 2, but also potentially 3. But T3 on the backside going to break that T1 goal.
Yeah, I don't know how much it...
So, like, generally, like, I do throw, like, a little bit of color in there if there's not, like, anything too notable. Like, this is an all-rounder game, so a lot of the engages are just going to be a lot of basic attacks. So there's not a whole lot of, like, big moves to call out. So it's okay to throw in some color from time to time. But as long as you're kind of staying in the moment for those big moments, obviously you got a big goal. You got on the top side, you have a big goal. And for me, like, once that moment dissipates, I'm passing it right over.
But it's...
And kind of I like to end it of, that's a big moment for T3 because it gets them a little bit closer. And then you'll see kind of like that 230 mark. Husky's going to kind of talk about win conditions here.
Does bring their score deficit within 100 points. With about 30 seconds left until Rayquaza hits the map, it's just going to be teams looking for that last little bit of experience that they can possibly garner. 14s on both the Dragonite and the Charizard, and that has only been reached for the Urshifu on the other side. But it is good that the Tinkaton has gotten to level 13 after such a rough start to that game. It's just going to be a matter of can they last in this final fight.
Final stretch. Rayquaza has joined the fray. Charizard going to maybe check some tall grass with that flamethrower. If you get that speed boost, you know that you have hit a target. Tinkaton looking for a Gigaton Hammer engage. Going to back right on out. So this one wasn't as like a picture perfect handoff. Like she hands it off. She was kind of already like running out of gas because it was like 30 seconds of talking at that time. So she doesn't hand it off. I could have probably handed off a little bit earlier, but I thought Charizard was going in, so I didn't want to like send it over to her too fast, and then we have something else. So I'm just calling it at this point because I do see that like they're going for the play.
Yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong with a cold pickup, as basically what Kyle did there, where Husky didn't really give him much to go off of. She didn't really talk about any sort of engages, and Kyle had to kind of pick up on something that was happening. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like having that variety is okay too. So I know we were talking about handoffs. We were harping on handoffs a lot in the little presentation that Kyle put together, but having cold starts like that isn't terrible either.
Yeah, and it happens. It is going to happen because sometimes you just run out of gas of talking because nothing is happening. Like there was probably like 40 seconds without anything happening between the two teams other than capturing wild Pokemon or just like poking a bush.
Can you rewind it for one more time? So we can talk about that again. But also just like recognize like Kyle's tempo and his cadence of how he's talking when he picks it up. There's purposely not as much excitement. His tempo and his words are very slow, just kind of matching the pace of the game. And that's just something you want to do as a caster to match your energy to what's going on with the game, right? It doesn't mean that they're low energy. It also just means that you're building tension, I think is a better way to phrase that, instead of coming out the gate super hot.
Yeah.
You know? Go ahead.
It's like the calm before the storm, because you are. I think Draku said it a couple of times. Like you're trying to build this climactic moment, the absolute cinema, right? Like it's all leading towards a big moment. Like obviously the score is very close. So like personally, I love starting the Rayquaza very soft. I'm building that tension. It's a tense moment. Teams don't want to give any any potential information on where they're hiding, blah, blah, blah. Like you're kind of like, you're starting off soft and you're kind of building up and like, and there's this big moment. So like, that's like, listen to the kind of like the cadence, like Draco
possibly
saying.
garner 14
It's almost a little counterintuitive when you talk about it, but there is tension in silence. So sometimes using
Yes.
silence to your advantage builds energy. So
Mhm.
even if there's like a half second of no one talking, you're building up that tension. As long as you're using it intentionally, I think that's the most important thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On both the Dragonite and the Charizard, and that has only been reached for the Urshifu on the other side. But it is good that the Tinkaton has gotten to level 13 after such a rough start to that game. It's just going to be a matter of can they last
Why is it doing that? There we go.
in this final fight.
Final stretch. Rayquaza has joined the fray. Charizard gonna maybe check some tall grass with that flamethrower. If you get that speed boost, you know that you have hit a target. Tinkaton looking for a Gigaton Hammer engage. Gonna back right on out. Mimikyu, though, not backing out at all. Buzzwole dropping them in directly into the hammer. But here comes the Ceruledge Unite move. All the Unite moves starting to get expended for both squads. T3 coming out ahead. 3 members down for Barrel of Monkeys. But we do have Tinkaton Buzzwole going down the other way. Dragonite very low. Charizard able to find that KO. But this is kind of a little bit of a stalemate. T3 unable to rip right now.
Yeah,
I kind of have like this moment where I'm like, wait, I think this is just going to amount to nothing. So I kind of stumble, and like one of my like tics of what I do, like when I'm stumbling, is I kind of like chuckle. So you got to hear that happen. And I realize like I need to get out of this situation. I realize this fight's done. Let me find a way to hand it over to Husky at this point. So you kind of hear me like,
Okay.
we're done. We're done. I'm out. And then that's kind of like that handoff back. I don't know why.
can't really do much about it. Charizard's still full health. Now Mimikyu has come back. They do have a Unite move available. Anon, though, going to try to put in 100 points. Will they be able to get to in time? They will. That actually does give T3 the lead. The Shadow Sneak will miss as well, so Mimikyu not quite able to get their points down, but it looks like Zacian's going to start the rip on Rayquaza, now backing up.
All 5 members are back. So yeah, Husky kind of breaks down a bit of a moment there, explains the new win condition, right? She talks about how T3 now has the lead. That's a big moment. And it's okay that she did a little play-by-play there. That's perfectly fine. The moment called for it because I had already had kind of an extended bit of a fight there. So she was breaking it down. And then we had a kind of a back cap moment, which was pretty hype. But she still finds a way to get us back into the moment. Zacian starting the rip, but now backs up. So that, to me, I am picking that up, and I'm going to... Bina's here now. Bina's looking at this moment right there, and I am now going to try to pick up on this Buzzwole into the Zacian, because that is, like, I'm always looking at the minimap. You should always be looking at the minimap. Zacian's the only one with the Unite move right now. That is a secure tool. That is like one of the best secure tools on the map right now, considering maybe obviously Urshifu Wicked Blow, Tinkaton Gigaton Hammer, obviously going to be another one. No Unite move for Aegislash, so don't have to really worry about that. So those are the types of things when I am a play-by-play caster and I am noticing that we are going to be having a climactic moment. What secure tools do we have online? That is something that's so important. I cannot express that enough. Sometimes you might not get the right one at the right moment because sometimes everybody throws everything all at once. But knowing at least what is available and what is likely to get it is always going to be something that's very useful to know. In this Rayquaza central area looking for the rep. Rayquaza already at half. Suicune getting dangerously low. Ceruledge able to take them out. Dragonite putting a little bit of attention, a little bit forward. Outrage is the name of the game, and they're getting a couple of KOs there. Tinkaton next on the chopping block. We had the Gigaton Hammer almost getting it, but the boosted autos do take out the Dragonite. 3 members up for Barrel of Monkeys. Gigaton Hammer misses the mark. Tinkaton down. Urshifu needs to get in there. They need a Wicked Blow, and they're charging it up. They get it! T3!
What? Anon! Able to jump in cash.
What did you notice there?
That you built it up, and then sorry, I'm blanking.
Very good.
You built up the moment there, and you were you were hovering before getting super excited because you saw an opportunity for
Mhm.
the steal to come in before diving in full force on the energy for the Rayquaza secure.
Yeah, that's what
How's your
1000%
feet,
it.
Kyle?
Huh?
How's your feet?
My feet?
She stepped on your toes a little bit there.
I mean,
feel like
she
it was
was-
still your moment. I felt like it was still your moment.
No,
But-
we do this. We talk about this. It's kind of like that ad-libbing type of thing. You and I talked about this a lot. Of like,
Oh, I know that, but I
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
like her ad lib was not her trying to take the mic. I thought it was like her trying to add to your moment. There is what I thought. That was my first take of that opinion of that.
yeah, no, she knows that like one of the things, and this is the thing that I talked about with Alex too. Like, one thing that I like to do is like when that moment happens, I'm done. Like, I'm gonna like you saw it there. You need to get in there. You gotta get a wicked blow, and they get it T3, and then I'm done. Like, that's it. Like, I'm not prolonging that. Husky can then take that mic and like she knows, like, so she's ad-libbing. Like, if something hype like that is happening, she's gonna add like the whole like the aha, like all that kind of stuff to it. And like that doesn't bother me. I because I'm used to it and we've talked about it. But yeah, she knows that like once that happens, take it and break it down, because I've already held the mic for the fight. Now it's her job to take over, still carry that hype and carry that excitement into breaking down the fight. Which I think personally, like, it's like why we make a good team, because like, yeah, it's my job to bring the hype, but she carries that hype. Like, she continues and like knocks it down, like breaks down the play of what happened and does that really well while still maintaining that level of like excitement.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
With the wicked blow to finish off the Rayquaza, and once again,
No
Barrel of
way,
Monkeys
Anon.
losing the game to a devastating Ray secure from the
This is actually like almost a grief here though, because there's only 10 seconds left. He can't score. Look at the Zacian.
other side. Anon twice in a row taking the game out from Barrel of Monkeys.
Nope.
Look at this though.
That's Metal Claw.
34. Right? Would have been 34. So that would have tied it, right? Oh no, that would have given them the win. If he doesn't touch the doesn't walk through that Altari, he might be able to score that.
Yeah, it was really close.
It was really close.
There, take a ton next on the chopping block.
But yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like what we try to do and what we try to practice. And that's just, it might be a stylistic thing. And there's like 1,000 ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I think it's just a matter of like finding a style that works for you and finding a partner that wants to get better with you as well too. I think that's like, to me, like in my growth as a commentator, that's been like the biggest thing that changed from year one of casting, and even maybe like 6 months of casting, to now year 2 of casting, is finding like a partner that is on like the same journey as you and wants to get better, which I think is really fun. Draku said he didn't want to get better with me, so that's why he wasn't my partner.
Oh, okay. Hey man, I did have a casting partner, and then he just did get better. So I don't know what to say.
Man. Shots fired.
Yep.
Cool. I know we're like way over time.
Yeah, Kyle talks too much, man.
I'm a yapper.
This is what you guys should expect for the freaking casting seminar. We already talk a lot on broadcast.
Yeah.
Now we're just gonna talk even more.
Hey, I'm all for it.
So yeah, I think just going back to your VOD hide and just some general high level stuff. Again, just try to follow the energy of the match. I think I was telling you this before. Try to follow the energy of the match and where it's going, and try to be a really strong storyteller of that game. And even within certain team fights, and I was talking about it when Kyle was doing his play-by-play moment for that Ray fight, he had storytelling moments within team fights, right? Really try to play with your peaks, play with your lows, and make sure that you're not peaking too fast, right? Because if you're just at a peak forever, then you're already going to be pulling away the impact of when you should be at that high moment, right? So remember to be a better storyteller rather than being just the hype guy.
Okay.
And I think that's my kind of general feedback for you.
Mm-hmm. I'm with it. Cool. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, open floor for anybody
Yeah,
that wants to
anybody
talk.
that
If you guys
wants
have
to-
any last questions,
Feel free to
we'll
drop it.
probably go for like
Feel free to
10 minutes or so.
drop
Probably
drop it in chat in the VC chat, or just unmute, whatever you want. Cool.
Good talk.
Fun stuff. Yeah. ZaddyCon when? I don't know when ZaddyCon is. Probably next week. I think ZaddyCon's next week, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's next week.
That's what's in Anaheim, right? Yeah. I think Draku, we have, I think Wednesday you're gonna do something, yeah?
Yeah, so Wednesday we're going to try to do what we did the first time we hosted a casting thing like this. We're not going to do this whole introductory to casting again. We're going to try to focus more on in-houses and just give people who want to give casting an opportunity to try. And we'll do it at the same time, 5 o'clock, until whenever. So very much like the first time we did it, and it'll be cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Will that one also be recorded?
It can be. I mean, it is. Yeah, we can do that. We'll probably do it by the set and not by the entire session.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm gonna end the recording, and
Hang
then
on.
I'm gonna upload this to the Underdunk YouTube, and then it'll be there for anybody to watch that's interested.